What's up, everybody? Coach Ken from Giving It a Try. This is the podcast, episode one. Now, what would it be without at least introducing myself, talking about my journey? This might actually turn into a shorter, multi part story just because I would like to tell it in the best recollection that I can. It was fun writing up some notes, looking back, and just kind of going year by year and trying to almost it's good at this point, at least of my journey, to be able to look back and be able to see where I've come from, how far I've come. It was actually quite humbling looking back at some of the stuff which we'll talk about, and hopefully it inspires some others. Maybe it resonates with what your journey was and how you got into endurance sports. So really, if we're gonna talk about the why or how, why endurance sports, there's a lot of different things and healthy lifestyle choices out there that I could have went down, and I had some interest before that. We're gonna rewind this story. I'm 40, going to be 41 years old in April, so I was born in '84, and going back into my 20s, always just trying to stay active. I was always a like leaner type of person. I was getting into weightlifting in my 20s. That was kind of where, I guess, at the time, where my friends and things we would talk about and programs we would design. And I think I found a good connection with weights and going to the gym, because it was, especially when I turned more towards like the progressive overload and trying to get stronger, that was my goal. Really, in my mid to late 20s, that was my focus. I'd go to the gym. I would go on really strict plans as far as, lifting weights. I was a hard gainer at the time, so I was kind of always hard to gain muscle. I always was kind of jealous how a little bit easier it seemed when some other people would go to the gym and they'd, get bigger muscles and things like that a little bit quicker than I would. I had to work. I had to work real hard for any of the results that, I would get from that. I remember, oh man, having, gallons of pump egg whites in the fridge, gallons of whole milk, just trying to get as many calories in as I could afterwards. And it was truly like that hard gainer uh, body that I had at the time. And the same thing with strength. I really had to work hard to increase my lifts and things like that. And I was on a couple different programs at that time. I got pretty serious into, I guess you could say, the later half, just before turning 30. Maybe I thought that was, the big thing at the time, turning 30, and had to, wanted to be, maybe that was just like a big thing to me at the time. Fast forward being in my 40s now, we'll talk about why the change turning 40. But at that time, let's, rewind a little bit on that. I was doing certain things. If you're familiar with the strength training world, I got really into the Olympic lifts, squat, bench, deadlift, 5x5 programs, 20 rep squat programs, strong lifts programs, super squats, all that type of um, modalities for weightlifting. And it was really progressive overload, working with plans where you take a step back. You would build very, very marginally and precisely certain reps and certain weights week by week, even adding incremental weights at some points where you're adding just a quarter pound, half pound, or a pound to your lifts week after week, and just trying to raise the bar, so to speak, as far as what your total would be for weightlifting at the time. And the only thing I could really find when I rewound was back in 2012. I was about 28 years old. I found a screenshot I had in one of my files from like kind of like a leaderboard in a group I was in. And at that time, I was about 202 pounds, which, was getting towards the heavier end of, I guess, or deeper into my lifting point in life, because I was always just naturally kind of in the 180s and things like that. So I did gain a little bit of muscle. I did surpass. I got into that what I was shooting for at that time. My big goal was the 1,000 pound club, which is a single rep combination between squats, bench press, deadlift. I think, the last of what I found, without diving into all my journals and things like that, was like a 350 pound squat, 225 pound bench press. That was always my weakest out of the lifts, and a 435 pound deadlift. And I really enjoyed those weights at the time. Now, what happened with that? What curveball came was that was about 2012. Go forward a little bit, big changes in life, buying a house, getting married, having kids, changing career in 2013. It was a different road down the career that I was in, a different position. So a lot of different things started to happen, a lot more responsibilities, kind of growing up, if you will. And then kids, 2014, 2016, they were about 18 months apart, two boys, love them to death. And that just kind of put a curve on things. I mean, I wasn't able to get out and get the time and the, I guess, the mental bandwidth I needed at that time to keep progressing with that. So with strength, especially if you're not keeping up on everything, you start to regress, and then kind of just I lost steam. So I was a little bit stressed at the time. Again, house, marriage, kids, that combination of life started to come in to kind of, you know, working opposite of my wife, scheduling wise. She's working, I'm working, we're trying to manage. This is all new. I'm only at the time in my early 30s, and a lot of stuff going on. So it was crazy. It was crazy. Over time, then, because I had gained a little bit of weight with the strength, losing a little bit of muscle, body composition starting to change, diet wasn't on point, just kind of convenience stuff, watching the kids at home, just going down that road. I think I topped out at one point at about 212 pounds. That was my max. When one day I just kind of was like, noticed that my body was changing, just the healthiness. I just didn't feel good, carrying a lot of stress and things like that. So I had to do a change. But the whole rebound back in the gym, that was just something that really would have taken up a lot of time and energy and mental bandwidth that I didn't have to give at the time. And one thing I kind of was telling myself was like, you got to just get outside. Like, you kind of ran a little bit in your early 20s briefly, for different reasons, and you need a pair of shoes. You need to get outside. You need to get away. You need to get some fresh air, and you need to just go do something. So I had the time to go. Like, man, it definitely spiraled down a little bit of a path where I just needed to do something. So that was about 2017, I believe, where I had the goal of, you know what, let me just do a couch to 5K program. There'll be a virtual 5K I found online for a nice fundraiser I liked at the time. And that was going to be in May of that year. So I said, I'm just going to do a virtual 5K. As much as I always wanted to do, I was thinking about, oh, maybe I'll really run like a real 5K. And at that time, like, that was kind of daunting and overwhelming and kind of like a little scary to go out there and run with all these people and do it. So I said, let me do it virtually. So over those few months early on in that year, 2017, Couch to 5K program, Google popped it up, Couch to 5K program. Let's go. Let's find out what we can do. And I started. It was walk run, because I knew if I just jump into it, I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm going to get hurt. It's not going to work out too well. So I did it. It was what I liked about it is when I downloaded it and it had set days, set sessions, it kind of started reminding me of that feeling I had when I was programming strength training a few years back in the gym. It was kind of like, there's a goal for the day. I got to check the box and I got to get it done. And I think at the time I might have had like a Fitbit or something like that, using like Map My Fitness, and that was kind of logging the stuff as I went. And slowly the periods of running got a little greater, the periods of walking got a little less. And then that May 2017, I believe it was my first 5K, quote unquote, virtual around my town. And it went pretty well. I was, a little sweaty afterwards. And, that was a big deal to me at the time. 3.1 miles of kind of pushing myself and working up to that was, to me at the time, pretty damn awesome. And I kind of caught the bug at that point. I said, I just did this. I want to go and actually sign up and do something like a real 5K, do something out there on the road, with other people. And that's going to be my goal. My next goal was, I want to check the box for a real 5K. And I found some local runs, things that, because every 5K run kind of has a different fundraising behind it and a different reason why they do the 5K. So I found a couple that kind of suited my why at the time, something that can kind of keep me going. And I was able to, get out there and kind of get it done. And that was, I believe, June of 2017 was my first official, 5K in the park type of thing. and it was awesome. And from that point, it was let's keep going. Let's see what we can do. Let's see where this takes us. And next thing you know, going that summer, like it was a 10K. And at the time, I was racing in the Clydesdale division, the 200 plus pound category for males. I was still in that category that year. Some of the races had it. So I would kind of look and see where the Clydesdale divisions were and things like that, and kept going. And I just loved it. Loved running local races. And I started to meet a few people through friends and things like that, that I knew that like, oh, wow, you run too. You're at these races. And I needed some more motivation at the time. So I said, if I surround myself with these people and try and follow in their footsteps, that would be awesome. So in 2017 on Facebook, I created a private group called Giving It a Try that summer, and started inviting some of these people that I met in this close circle into that group. It was people that were just doing these park runs, these 5Ks, 10Ks, things like that. And we kind of just motivated each other. We'd meet up at these park runs. We would do things. And I saw some of them were doing half marathons, and I was amazed. I was like, this is awesome. This is kind of like my tribe I need to be a part of. And like any season of life, as I switched into that and kind of started jumping into that, it's unfortunate, but again, the seasons of life is you start to kind of move down different roads and different directions of some other people that were in your life at the time. And that's going to happen as you pick up these different lifestyle changes. They're not really hobbies, I don't want to call them, because they are lifestyle changes. These are things that change your life for the better. If you're all in on them, you're going to start to surround yourself with a different group of people, again, because it's a different season of life. And I've been through a few of these different seasons, even since I started endurance training. And the greatest part is I'll always go back at any point to anybody that helped me along the way in the journey in a positive light, and help them out with anything they ever need at any part of the day. So here we are really in 2017, did a 10K that summer at Eisenhower Park locally here on Long Island. That's where I'm based out of in New York. And that was awesome too. My kids were there. It was great. My wife started running a little bit that year. We were switching off and pushing the kids in the jogging stroller. We were getting all into it. And how things kind of changed a little bit was her friend kind of dared her to do a triathlon that August. And she's like, let's do it, train together. Um, my wife could swim, so that wasn't a problem for her. She had a mountain bike and she was running a little bit. So it was a sprint triathlon. And I was like, you're crazy. For myself, I couldn't swim as an adult. I couldn't get from one end of the pool to the other at that time. And so for me, that was something I was like, wow, that's, look at you, like stepping it up way beyond me already. And then I saw her do that. I saw her just train a little bit for it. She kind of just kind of winged it, and it was pretty amazing. And that summer, I saw her complete a sprint triathlon. And when I saw the atmosphere at this race in that August of 2017, I was like, "This is awesome. These people are next level." Um, but for me, like I can't swim. So this is just something that's not going to happen for me. So I did a little bit of research and things like that. And I found duathlons. Wow. Run, bike, run. Are you kidding me? Like I can do that. I didn't really have a bike at the time. I wasn't biking per se, but that piqued my interest. That really piqued my interest because that's something that could have been attainable for me at that time. So I jumped on Facebook Marketplace. I found a hybrid performance bicycle. Well, that one was a hybrid bicycle. With the smoother tires. I said, well, did it on a mountain bike. If I can do it on a bike very similar that has a little bit smoother tires, I'll probably do a little bit better. And that duathlon was in Central Park, and we went there in the fall, early fall. I think it was September that year. And man, when we got to Central Park for that duathlon, and it was a very short duathlon, 2 mile run, 10 mile bike or so, a 2 mile run, if that. Um, when we got to the transition, which I learned, what that is at the time, when you switch sports, you switch from your run to bike and then your bike to run. The bikes and the gear that were at this transition, I said, why am I here? This is insane. The amount of spandex, lycra, carbon fiber. Unbelievable. I said, "This I am about to get embarrassed." But I did me. I did my run portion. I was picking up running pretty well, so I did the run. I got on the bike. I remember it was raining. Of course, why wouldn't it be raining? You'll learn that down the road in these stories. That just me and weather on race days is typically usually a rainy day. I got on that bike for that short course around Central Park. It was really the first time I think I've ever been in Central Park, really. Had no idea about any of these hills that are in Central Park. And all I remember is pushing my way up a hill, hearing a big pop, spoke blowing out the back wheel. The back wheel went out of true, started rubbing, and I just started laughing. I'm like, this is hysterical, but I don't know where the hell I am. I don't even know how far into the course I am. I just need to get back. I need to be done. Uh, Managed to, I think I actually like disconnected the rear brake so that the wheel wouldn't rub on it, and then just kind of sent it in, got the run done. But I felt super accomplished after that. Like laughing the whole way. Like it was just awesome. It was an awesome experience. So that was my intro really to multisport. It happened pretty quick. And that year we kept moving along. We kept doing things that year. We kept racing. I did a half marathon my first year, 2017 in October. And a side note about that, and this is why I like going down this history of humbleness, is I trained up for that distance. And again, that's pretty quick, right? From a 5K in a May, a virtual 5K, to a half marathon as a first year runner. It was in October of 2017. And it rained, and I remember being in so much pain on the second part half of that course. I thought my knees were going to explode. Uh, Turns out everything was fine in the end. Just that those initial things that start bothering you when you're running and increasing mileage like that, and probably a little too quick than I wanted to. So that was 2017. Got that done, got that medal, and said, wow, this is pretty awesome. I did a half marathon in the first year of running. This is pretty awesome. But when I saw my wife cross that sprint finish line in August of that year, I said, that's something I need to learn to do. I took on a mission that winter and started swimming with a friend of mine. Took a lesson. I think I went to like almost like a safety swim type place for one lesson. Was totally over my head with it. Had no idea what was going on. Felt totally out of place. Wound up going to the local aquatic center with my buddy a bunch of times. Watched a bunch of videos and just kind of started at some point getting through it. Learning how to breathe underwater. Getting from one end of the pool to the other, and we just kept trucking along that winter. The goal was for 2018 to get into a sprint triathlon, finish it, and the first part of that was going to be an indoor triathlon. And what an indoor triathlon is they had it at a health club coming up. I think it was in like January, February of 2018. It was one of like a lifetime try event where you'll swim a certain number of laps in the pool or a certain amount of laps in a certain time frame. Whoever can do the most, that's how you get ranked. You go in the spin studio. They'll give you a time frame. You'll see how far you can go on the spin bike, and then a set time on the treadmill. You'll see how far you can run on that treadmill. So we did that in January of 2018. That was pretty cool. Kind of did some laps in the pool, so that was fun. But there was no real set distance, so you couldn't fail. You couldn't like not complete it. You can do one lap and still be fine, or you can do 12 laps. It really didn't matter. So I felt really good after that. I kind of felt accomplished on that end. And then there was another indoor outdoor local triathlon that spring where it was going to be a pool swim for distance. And then you go out to the park and you do the bike and the run, sprint, like a super sprint distance. So that was pretty cool because that kind of gave me a reason to keep going with the swimming, keep going with the biking, keep going with the running, just setting the goal, setting the next bar, pushing the field goal post a little bit. Managed to successfully get that done. I do remember on that though, with the swim again, this is what I learned with down the road is about making smart decisions. This was not a smart decision. The Saturday before that race, My buddy asked him to do a Spartan at City Field. First ever Spartan race. No idea what was going on. The amount of stairs that we climbed at City Field that day, that was Saturday in April of 2018. Like, awesome event, super cool. And the next morning I woke up and my legs were like cement and I had to do this pool swim. So I remember there is a picture of me at that pool triathlon where I was literally just hanging on the wall. And I remember the lady going and saying, are you okay? Are you okay? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm just a little tired. My legs were gassed. So halfway through that, I took a little break, but I did finish the pool swim. I got through it, and for the distance that we needed to do that day. Felt super accomplished, super motivated after that. Got out, did the bike, did the run, and still didn't feel though accomplished, I guess, or didn't want to label myself. It was silly at the time to even think this as a triathlete, quote unquote, because I figure, a triathlete is somebody who goes out in the open water and swims, then bikes, and then runs. This was like a controlled environment, but totally wrong. Like anything you're doing that involves a swim, a bike, and a run, like you're doing triathlon. Like that's just the name of the game. You're doing three events and three different sports, and you're a triathlete. But that year, I got hooked up with a few people from because I did another duathlon that spring from Merrick Bicycles triathlon team, a local team here. And when I joined up with them, I forgot how I got involved with them. It was through a friend of a friend, I think. They just recommended it. I met some of them at the duathlon that spring. I got hooked up with them on their Facebook page, started going to some of their group workouts, their group rides. I had upgraded a bike by then. I believe I had a road bike by this time in the spring. Um, and then eventually that spring as well, my first tri bike, which bought off, like used off the marketplace because I really like to do athlons. And that was really something that was appealing to me, just having fun with that event. And because I was taking the biking and running pretty well. It was just that swimming thing that I just couldn't grasp and do. But I planned to do a local triathlon that year, Jamesport Triathlon. That was going to be my goal for the year. If I can survive this open water triathlon, that would be amazing. Like that is my goal right now. That if I can do that, it's kind of like almost like a 14-month 5K to triathlete, journey, and that would have been awesome. When I started training with this group, this triathlon team, and they were all signed up. They're doing Ironmans and half Ironmans and marathons, and I'm like, this is next level. I am out of my league here, and just kept training, kept doing, just showed up. I really didn't have a plan per se at the time. Just getting workouts done. They would go out. They would do like a 20 and 2, 20 miles on the bike, 2 miles on the run, 30 and 3 the next week, 40 and 4, prepping up for their races that they were all doing. So I was kind of just getting along, and every week was something new. Every week was something new for my body, a new distance. Just taking to it, just spinning the wheels and getting it done. And then it was open water season time that year. Bought my first wetsuit, and I said I got to learn how to swim in the water. So I had a friend of mine, friend Matt, who brought me and my buddy who learned how to swim, were learning that winter. Said, "Come on down. I got a spot where we swim at, and let's go out. We're going to go out." I remember getting down there. It was a little earlier in the season. Water was cold. It was in the morning. It was foggy out. Really couldn't even see where the hell we were going. And he's like, "We're going to swim out this way and go there." I said, "All right, fine." I mean, the first time in like a wetsuit ever going out in the water. And I remember swimming offshore, getting out there a little bit. And, I guess what I can consider now is basically almost like a panic attack. Never felt like that before, but got out there, was kind of hypoxic because she just wasn't breathing right to start, and just got out there. And once I couldn't touch and the ground anymore, and I got a little away from shore, and it was foggy out and it was cold, so my head started to hurt, and I was just like, "There's no way, I'm out. Like I got to get to shore. I got to get." So I remember that I cut it pretty short, but still my longest swim to date at that point. And I said, "This is wild. This is going to take some time. This is going to take some energy." And then just kept going, and eventually just said, you know what, you don't have to shoot for the moon, stay close to shore. So again, set up progression, progressive overload. It's just the name of the game is start small, smart with a super tangible goal. It could be just swim 20 seconds without being able to touch the ground, turn around and come back, do it again. Whatever it is, set a tangible overload over a certain period of time where you're just going to slowly, slowly, slowly expand into getting towards the goal that you need to do. So kept going, started to, work a little bit. Like open water was getting a little bit better, wasn't too bad. Kept going, and think the triathlon came along in July. My first open water try that year, July of 2018, was awesome. Showed up. I was with the team, the Merrick Bicycle team at the time. Tons of just familiar faces, and we got it done. And the feeling I had after that race was a feeling of accomplishment and feeling like I belonged in that multi-sport community. Felt like I belonged on that team. Felt like I belonged in the eyes of everybody there. And now you may think that's silly to think that, but it was just a good confidence boost to think that look where you came from last year. Like this is your world now. This is your like something's going on here, and something was brewing, something was building. I didn't know it was going to start spiraling too far after that, but I guess I was riding the high from that race, and it was probably I think it was must have been just after that where we were out on a ride. We were doing one of um, those training rides where we would have to do a certain distance, and I think we just went out for a ride, and a lot of them were doing a long ride because they had a big race coming up, and probably an Ironman that summer or something like that. And we're just riding, 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 and I stopped my watch when I got back to the park. I looked down at it, and I really wasn't paying attention too much to a goal for the day, and it said 56 miles or 56.2 miles for the bike. And what sparked in my head was a half Ironman bike ride is 56 miles long. You just did 56 miles. You ran a half marathon. You ran one last fall. You got some work to do with your swimming, and a bunch of people are doing a half Ironman in September coming up. So in my head, I started to build a storyline. What if I went from quote unquote non runner, couch to 5K, to completing a half Ironman in about let's call it an 18-month span? That would be something that I never thought I'd be able to do. Atlantic City, it was 2018. We're doing it. Signed up, and I remember that race, doing it with a few of the teammates, and the feeling and accomplishment of that race, that day, the totality of it, being so nervous, having that fear, having that pre-race jitters. It was probably one of the most challenging days of my life up to that point. Just as far as setting a goal and putting yourself in a very uncomfortable position, something you decided to do. Nobody told you you had to do this or anything like that. And being able to check that box, half Ironman, 18 months after basically starting this whole journey. Um, and then from there, it just blew up. Like I was riding the high of that race, said, all right, next year, new goal. What are we doing? We're doing two half Ironmans. We're going to go do Maine 70.3. We're going to do back to Atlantic City 70.3. We're going to beat last year's time at Atlantic City. And that was the goal, 2019. Pushed through, kept swimming, kept biking, kept running. Had an outstanding two races in 2019. It was really, really awesome. Going forward into 2022, I said, well, what can I do now? I mean, what is it that we can push the envelope on now as far as training, racing, anything? And 2019 to top that off, to finish 2019, it is another checkbox at the end was my first marathon. It was a local marathon, Suffolk County Marathon. I ran it with a buddy of mine, Gabe. He said, "Just follow me, we'll go." And definitely was a little too fast for me for the day. That's probably not what I would have did. It completely poured sideways during the entire race, and I followed him through to the end. And again, another just crazy accomplishment at the time. Where again, I was like still stunned that all this was even happening as far as moving forward with this journey. And then 2022, heading into that, I set some audacious goals that year as far as I signed up to do the Gasparilla Run Challenge early in the year in February, which was 4 races over 2 days, totaling 30 plus miles. They call it like an ultra challenge. It was a 5K, an 8K, I think like a 15K and a half marathon spread out over 2 days. And it would be about 32 miles or something like that for the total distance. And I was doing that in prep for signing up for a shore to shore 50K, a trail race here on Long Island, 32 miles. And I started doing some trail running over the winter and took my training philosophy at the time, which was faster every week. If you ain't going faster than last week, you're not improving. And took that to the trails to get ready for that race over the winter and was smashing myself through the trails. And, times kept improving through all these races up to this point. But I do remember right before Gasparilla in 2022, things started to break down. Things started to catch up to me. I was having knee pain. I was having pain in my legs, and just things weren't feeling as good as they should have been feeling. I went into Gasparilla and actually got a stomach bug while I was down there, and that wiped me out as well. So between the stomach issue and the leg issue, that was a pretty miserable experience that year. Got through it, but it was miserable. I did not have fun at all. Came back, and obviously we all know what was going on. Beginning of 2020 was a lot of things were happening in the world at the time. A lot of things were being shut down, a lot of unknowns, a lot of races were starting to get canceled, and short of shore, that 50K was canceled for 2020. Kind of bummed because I was kind of moving along with things and just kind of having fun. And it's just kind of like it stinks. It's something, we all enjoyed doing and we weren't able to do it. But with the totality of everything going on, that was really just very small compared to the other things that were happening in the world. But the problem was I was breaking down. Um, I was getting faster. I was getting more efficient. What I thought through all this running and everything like that, uh, thought I was taking enough time in the journey to progress through everything. But what I did notice was, again, that pain. Everything was starting to kind of break down. Overuse stuff is really what it was. So the year of 2020, everything got shut down. And this is really a changing or a turning point in my endurance journey. And this is where we'll start to wrap up the first part of this. So, this first part is really the journey of the inception, 2017 through 2020. And really, the only highlights of 2020 were that everything was shut down, and I really had to just slow down my training. There really was nothing on the schedule. There was no goals. So why are we going to beat ourselves up? And especially, you're having some problems, having some foot problems, some plantar problems. I was having some IT band problems. Started to go get it all looked at. I was having plantar fasciitis at the time, IT band syndrome, which was causing pain in my knees. It was really from lack of posterior chain strength training. So as I found all this out at the doctor and everything, I said, "There's got to be a change if I want to do this and be sustainable. I want to have longevity in this, and I want to enjoy doing this for a prolonged period of time. You got to get yourself right." But I had an opportunity to because everything was closed down at the time. So for me, it helped that year not having anything because I probably would have tried to race through a lot of these pain and things like that. So the fact that it was shut down helped me. It helped me realign my goals, my journey. So I was able to take a step back for a few months. Run buddy of mine, we literally ran locally together every set day. We had certain days we were running, about 3 4 days a week, whatever it was at the time. Same mileage, same place, same time, because the world was shut down. But we made a commitment that year to just keep grinding and keep running. But we just threw all the parameters out the window and just said, we're just going to run and talk, and stress free talk, talk about what's going on in the world and get all the stuff off our chest that we wanted to. So we called them therapy runs at the time. We just went out, we talked, we laughed, we said, what is going on in this world? Who knows what's going on? But we just need to enjoy ourselves, and we need to just get out there and run and have fun with it, and not worry about times, not worry about any of that. Started working on some of the things I had to work on, as far as strengthening my posterior chain, letting things heal, working out the issues I had with my foot, resting it a little bit, doing some footwork with that, and changing my shoes up, and really just getting a hold of myself as a whole. Started to feel a little bit better. And for 2020, I was supposed to do Maine that year, but obviously it was canceled. But I need a goal. For me, if I don't have a set date on the calendar, if I don't have a set goal, if I don't have metrics to hit and parameters and just something pulling me forward, not really like pushing me, pulling me towards that goal, I don't really do too well. So what I said is, well, Maine's canceled. That was supposed to be in like July or August that year. I think the end of August. I said, well, I'm doing a 70.3 anyway. I mean, I'm all in. Like, I can't go a year without doing one of these races. So jumped on with my local group that was still doing training, my local team, and I said, "This is what I'm doing. This date. Come for some, come for all, come for support. Do whatever you want to do." So there was a couple of us that wound up doing the whole distance that August. A bunch of people did the swim, jumped in on some of the bike, did some of the run with us, and just enjoyed it that summer. So it was good that I went through the training process again that year. I went through the plan that I had that year, and really started to be smart with my training and approach to that race. Very specific sessions, very specific metrics that I needed to hit to get to that point, so that my body didn't break down again. It went pretty well. To finish off 2020, I was able to actually get in a real sprint. At the end of the season, there was a local one that actually opened up last second, even though kind of as the closures in the world started to open up a little bit. They limited the field in it, and was kind of able to get that done and get something on the board that year. But this is where we'll end today, because 2020 to me was the break I needed, and the break that, and again, I think everything for different reasons happens to help people. And if you take certain situations and make the best of them, you'll be able to grow yourself and be able to progress and move forward. So, with that mindset shift and ability to start reading things and learning that year, I was able to change the narrative for myself on what endurance training and racing should be, in order to progress and make this, more of the longevity and sustainability side of it. So for now, this is where we're going to kind of end today. And next part we'll take up on is going to be the change in and how I structure my years now going forward, what I learned through that break, some of the classes and courses I took that helped me learn all of that. And then we'll shift into the coaching side of things on why I felt so good about the change that I made for myself, that I thought, again, everything happens for different reasons. That this was a calling for myself to be able to go teach the lessons that I learned for other athletes out there, people getting into the sport, so that I can guide them in the direction that they need to go in, so they don't have the setback that I had. Because they may not have that time where you're forced to take a setback, i.e., in races being canceled, then you're not being able to do anything for a year. Because the other side of that is, if you're not smart and you don't do things properly with endurance sports, your body will tell you that it's time to shut down. So I could have been on the edge of potentially really having to take a break for a long period of time, as opposed to being forced to, because there was nothing to race, there was nothing to do. Um, so it's not everybody's going to have that opportunity, is what I'm trying to get at. So for me, that was why I felt, with coaching and going forward, on how all that started to develop after 2020. So this is part one. This was my journey. That's how I got into running, endurance sports for that period of my life. In that, I thank everybody for every mile, for every smile that was out there, for every um, race that we attended together. Super grateful for that period of time, those few years of building my ladder up to my half Ironman journey, my marathon journey, and then inevitably trying to get into my first 50K that year. You all are the ones that motivated me, and there's no way I would have been able to even think that that was possible without you all setting the framework and the groundwork of going down that path before me and making that a reality for me. So much appreciated in that. Thanks for tuning in today. Don't forget to check for part two coming. And again, if you like the content here, just give a little thumbs up. And again, stay safe, stay healthy, keep balancing that life 1 mile at a time. I'll catch you on the next one.